Hello and welcome back, everybody. I realize that we are now in 2022, but I figured, better late than never. We still have some unfinished business left in 2021, and that would be my top 11 favorite albums of the year 2021. Now, in 2021, I listened to over 40 albums, which is a lot for me in 1 year. That's a ton. Just so you know, I'm going to cover these very briefly. I'm not going to go into a whole lot of depth, just my initial thoughts. And at the end of each review for these albums, I'm going to give you one standout track that I think you should check out. So anyway, let's just get started with number 11.
That's so shameful. Guess that's what I get for being faithful. Oh, you think I'm soulless cause the bank's full? Yeah. Oh, you think I'm heartless cause I'm made though? Yeah, that's so painful. Didn't know what you was doing.
At number 11, we have Clouds by none other than NF. I think it's very interesting that NF put this out as a mixtape because this man put so much time and so much effort into a mixtape. Look, NF is putting so much time and effort into a mixtape, way more than other artists have put into their mixtapes. NF's flows are just as aggressive, his beats are just as aggressive, and from start to finish, NF gives great performances along with Hopsin and Tech9, who he got on this album. Honestly, I think he knocked it out of the park. Personally, for me, the standout track on this album would probably be Prideful.
If I just take a minute to look around and see you reach my limit, I'm on the edge of scared of heights. I get it. It's hard to practice.
At number 10, we have A Day to Remember with their album You're Welcome. I realize a lot of people might be like, why in the world is this album on your list? So as I was scrolling through YouTube, as I usually do from time to time, I saw that this album actually made a lot of people's year-end lists for the worst albums of 2021. All that matters is that this made my top 11 favorite albums of the year. I think Jeremy, their lead vocalist, gives a great performance, whether it's singing or screaming from start to finish. Lyrically, you could make the argument that it's a little too cheesy and not A Day to Remember, but I don't care. A Day to Remember's always been a little cheesy to me, and I mean that very sincerely. I had a lot of fun with this album, and I feel like every list that people make for albums, at least, you have to have a fun album, an album that it doesn't have to be perfect all the time, just something that you can have fun with from start to finish. The standout track for me on this album definitely has to be High Diving. Number 9, we have Imagine Dragons with their album Mercury Act 1. Dan Reynolds' vocal delivery from start to finish is just so aggressive. Not to mention the instrumentation on this album is a bit more aggressive. There is life in this album. There is storytelling in this album. Dan Reynolds really pulled from personal experience to put together what I thought is their best album since their debut. And if I had to choose a standout track from this album, I would have to go with their track Lonely.
He knows that he got everything to serve ya. Flow hella rough enough to push you further. We must try and go for greatness, get the words done. Make him say the herd up. He knows that he got everything.
At number 8, we have another surprise, at least to me, and that is Tech9 with his album Asinine. This is by far his best album he's ever put out, probably since 6s and 7s. Something that I feel has been lacking in Tech9's albums is that he puts albums out so often. This album actually felt like Tech9 sat down and took his time. I can't remember all of the features on this album, but the ones that he does get are really, really good, and they actually add to the song. Tech9's flows are, as always, amazing. I'm not going to take his flows away, but they actually just feel like more aggressive. I feel like he's really putting himself out there on this album. I'm sure you've all heard The Rock's verse on Tech9's song Face Off, but look, while The Rock did a good job, okay, he did do a good job, listen to the rest of that song Face Off, okay? The whole song is good. With that being said, I think the standout track is actually the opener with his song The Herder. That song, when I heard that song, I just knew this whole album was going to be different for Tech9.
The sadness always comes in a
number 7, we have Devil Sold His Soul with their album Loss. Now, Devil Sold His Soul has been around since 2005. I was not aware. I thought this was a new band when I found this album. Let me tell you something, that this album is an experience. I've never heard an album like this before. This album really just reaches in and rips at your soul. From the screaming to the singing, this album addresses loss. I mean, I believe I read something on Twitter from them saying like, hey, 2020 was a crappy year. We all experienced a bunch of loss, and this is how we coped with it. Very straightforward, but at the same time, very, very original, and I loved it from start to finish. If I had to name one track from this album that you guys should check out, it would definitely be the title track, Loss, because it's heart-wrenching.
She likes to dream, I can see it in her eyes. Automatic, at 17 only wants what she can't find. Automatic.
At number 6, we have Angels and Airwaves with their album Life Forms. And I have to tell you, it was everything that I was looking for from Angels and Airwaves after a 7-year hiatus. There's maturity in their sound. I think Tom DeLonge was writing some of his best music ever, Blink-182 or Angels and Airwaves, even Boxcar Racer. I think this album contains some of his best writing ever. Angels and Airwaves also doing something that I think is very hard for bands to do, and that is keep your original sound, but mature it enough to where people will still stick around and be like, hey, that sounds like old Angels and Airwaves, but at the same time, you have a new spin on it, and it all just worked really cohesively. I really do hope that Angels and Airwaves don't take another 7-year break, because I would really like to hear how they play off of this album. If I had to suggest one track from this album, it would definitely be Automatic. Number 5, we probably have the biggest surprise, and that is Mayday Parade, let me look at the title, with What It Means to Fall Apart. This is another example of a band that is maturing. On this album, Derek Sanders, the lead singer, is still talking about love and loss and heartbreak. Everybody in the band sounds so cohesive. Before, I feel like it was kind of like Derek Sanders was the front man, here's the instruments behind him. Everybody seemed to have come together and said, look, we're a full band. Let's make this a full band experience. And I really don't feel like you get full band experiences as much these days. If I had to suggest one track, I would go with their track Sideways, where I believe Derek gives his best vocal performance on the whole album. Number 4, we have Silk Sonic with their album An Evening with Silk Sonic. Words really cannot describe how well Anderson .Paak and Bruno Mars did on this album. You have two extremely talented artists coming together and writing just a great throwback R&B hip-hop track. I mean, I got shades of Barry White in this thing. I got shades of James Brown in this thing. Anderson .Paak delivering his gritty vocals from start to finish. Bruno Mars, you know you're getting amazing vocals from him. They were also having fun with this. I think more artists need to get together, and it's easier said than done because I don't make music, but you need to get together and just start having fun. Put what you want out there. You may get some criticism for it, but you also might make masterpieces like this. And there is no debate here for me. The standout track on this album is Put on a Smile.
I just wanna feel alive, not for the world to see. Nobody else but me. 'Cause I wanna feel it all. The calm before the fall is taking over me.
At number 3, we have Attack Attack with their EP, Long Time No See. This album is hitting hard. This album makes you headbang. This is Attack Attack's first new album in, I believe, over 10 years. And if it's not over 10 years, it's very close to the 10-year mark. The vocals on this album are absolutely brutal as far as the screaming goes. I like that the singing and the screaming complement each other so well on this album. There is not one thing on this album that doesn't hit hard. The guitars, the drums, the bass, everything hits so hard all at once to just create an explosion of an album in the very best ways. If I had to suggest a track for you guys to check out, I would definitely check out Brachyra Bombshell. It was on my singles list. I think it was number 4. Check that one out. Now, for numbers 2 and number 1, generally speaking, if these two put out an album, they are going to make my list somewhere. I had a lot of fun with this album. I did actually see, for the first time in my life, complaints against this band, but I do not care. I have no complaints. They are at number 2.
You are formidable to me, 'cause you seem to know it where you wanna go. Yeah, I'll follow you. But you should know I might be cynical.
Yes, at number 2 we have Scaled and Icy by 21 Pilots. You see it? That's the one right there, the little dragon. I've said this before about 21 Pilots, but they are so good at their craft. Tyler, Joseph, and Josh Dunn came together and put this wonderful album together. This album is not nearly as dark as Trench was. Scaled and Icy still carry some of that over with their song Redecorate and No Chances. Both of those still could have been on Trench. They have a little darker undertone to them. But for the most part, you have this wonderful pop rock. It's very... I hate that I'm about to use this word because I'm about to age myself, but it is jaunty. And there is always lore to their albums. I hate that people were like, this has nothing to do with their other albums. It does. I'm not going to explain it because the lore is so far back, like all the way back to Vessel if you want. Scaled and Icy just proved to me that 21 Pilots can pretty much do no wrong. If they can pull me in on this album, I am extremely excited to see what they have coming in the future. If I had to pick a track off of this, I would definitely choose Formidable. That may not be the popular choice, but I loved Formidable the first time I heard it, and it is still my favorite song on this album. So coming in at number 1, for anybody that knows me, this should be zero surprise. Zero surprise.
Here comes the rain. Oh, it's gonna wash all my troubles away.
Yes, at number 1, we have Weezer with their fantastic album, OK Human. Look, call me biased or whatever, but everybody has a bias, so you shut your mouth. When your favorite band is still releasing music that can surprise you, I honestly had no idea what this was going to sound like. Even from the single, All My Favorite Songs, Weezer has spread the Baroque instrumentation throughout this entire album. To my knowledge, there's not one electric guitar on this thing. The piano, the violins, the acoustic guitar, just the whole orchestral piece movement recording blew my mind. Rivers Cuomo, hands down, this is some of his best writing in years. I also feel like this was an album Weezer needed to make at this point in their career. They've been going strong for well over 20 years now. I think of the Blue Album, the White Album, and now OK Human. I would put those as probably my top 3 Weezer albums. If I had to choose a standout track here, I'm actually gonna go with Here Comes the Rain. Check that song out, it's a bop. So there you have it, everybody. My top 11 favorite albums of the year 2021. Thank you for watching. These lists take so long to make, and I do them once a year. So the next time you hear from me or see from me will be in December of this year. So I look forward to seeing you all in about 11 and a half months.